Hi, welcome to the 1 in 20 show, where we're looking to find the next 1 in 20 successful individuals who are pursuing their passions so that you can too. And today we're joined by Nick. Welcome to the show.
Dude, so stoked to be here, man.
You made it.
This is rad.
90 miles.
I don't think I've actually ever done, I've never actually been on like a podcast or a show like this. So this is sweet. I'm stoked
super
to be
rad.
Here. Yeah.
I think you've come farthest out of everybody that's been on. 90 miles. That's kind of a trip. So I appreciate you for that.
I got a free water bottle.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm stoked.
And dinner to follow. You'll get that too. But no, for sure. Thank you for coming up and talking about kind of the creative arts.
Absolutely.
And getting into all that. Kind of tell me a little bit about your journey for people who don't really know what you do in the arts. Like, tell me about a little bit of everything.
Dude, love it. Okay, let's see where to begin. So I was born in Corona, California, and lived there for about 6 years. And then from there we moved to Southern Orange County, like Foothill Ranch, Lake Forest area. So I grew up in Orange County and then moved down to San Juan Capistrano, like near the beach. That's where I went to high school, like a small private Christian school down there, right? And then we like made a full circle back to the Inland Empire. So that's where like my folks live now. And I went to California Baptist University and I majored in Christian studies, minor in global studies.
Cool.
And so, but now that that's kind of the overview, like the context, I'll kind of backtrack to about freshman year of high school. I had a iPod Touch, right? Okay. And I vividly remember I had an iPod Touch freshman year of high school, right? And I'm taking my dog on a walk and like I'm taking pictures with this iPod Touch of like flowers and my shoes and my dog walking and like just like random stuff, right? And the pictures were horrible. Like they're not going to be framed up anytime soon, right? But as a result of like doing that and then coming back, like my dog runs inside and I'm like kind of flipping through some of these pictures and it was kind of this moment of like I captured these moments. Like I preserved these funny like little moments that people may look over. But it's like, it's mine. Like I can preserve that. Like I've captured something that I can now like look back on. So that kind of sparked this initial love for capturing moments and just like creativity in general. So made the colossal leap from an iPod Touch to an iPhone 3GS.
Sick.
Major jump. And then a 4S. And then I kind of like, that's when Instagram was just kind of like starting up and rolling around. So made an account and got really involved in the Instagram community. And I don't know if you're familiar, like Insta meets. Yeah. Like people
I remember
would go, they would just like show up at the beach in like multitudes with their iPhones. And we would just take like jumpstagrams or just like creative like pictures at the beach. And such a community started to come as a result of that, right? Yeah. So here I am with my iPhone. Now it's like junior year, now senior year of high school. And I'm like going to these events, meeting other creative people, still kind of all using our iPhones, right? Yeah. And so then I transitioned into going into Cal Baptist University. And I was always raised in the church growing up. Yeah. So I always thought like, okay, I'm going to be a youth pastor. I'm going to be a missionary or, heavily just involved in the church. So the moment I stepped on CBU's campus, I declared a Christian studies major and my minor in global studies, like I told you earlier. So kind of like dove right into that, right? Sure. But it wasn't until my sophomore year at CBU where someone handed me a DSLR camera and it just wrecked me. Just flipping messed me up, right? Yeah. And I've honestly just been hooked ever since, man. So, that was sophomore year at CBU. And then the moment I graduated, I dove into freelancing full time.
Awesome.
It was terrifying. The first 3 months, man, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, this is not working and I should just work at McDonald's or something. You know what I mean? Like, it was just not going as planned. And it was fearful because within freelancing, there's this feast and famine type thing where there's great months, there's like this feast and there's work that's coming in, and then there's the famine. Like, I initially just was introduced to the famine for 3 months and I'm like, holy crap, this is not good. But then as I started to get to know people and like start to build those connections, and this person knew this person that knew this person, connections started to arise as a result of me getting to know new people. And even to this day, that's the biggest success I've seen in freelancing full time is you got to know people and you got to just be genuine. Don't be so quick to see what you can get out of this relationship or how you can, you know what I mean? Like just be a genuine human being and get to know people and just love people and be about people, that will just play a significant role in new work and new opportunities that may arise. And so that's kind of like the rough template. I know that's
pretty good.
That was all over the place.
No, it wasn't. It was pretty good.
Yeah, but now currently freelancing full time using the camera and next month I don't even know exactly how much income I'm going to bring in, but it's a challenge that I am on board with. And it makes sense for this season of life that I'm in right now. Yeah. It may not make sense like if I want to have a family one day and dad's like, well, not going to make any money this month freelancing. So we're going to have to figure this out, but that's not the season of life I'm in right now. But like right now I'm just kind of caring for myself, trying to chip away at student loan debt and, continuing to just like pursue the camera and continuing to see how media and ministry can start to intersect. So that's kind of like somewhat of the template or like the structure to where my love for creativity began and now kind of where it's brought me to this point.
Awesome. So. That's great. Really perfect. That's like a perfect little concise bit that we got there. So that's great.
Love it.
Yeah, it's really cool to me to think about, like you mentioned, the whole networking game and how important it is to really build relationships that last.
Absolutely.
One becomes another and another and another. And I'm curious with like freelancing, when you jump into that and you know that like it's fully based and solely based on what you can generate, how you can generate the connection.
Sure.
What kind of goes through your headspace, like month by month? Like, what are you actually thinking through as far as like, okay, I know this person, like, how do I land that gig? Or like, how much reaching out do I have to do as far as new connections? And like, how does that whole thing work out?
Totally. So I think to answer your question, I think there's two like major keys to the success that I've seen in freelancing full time. One is enthusiasm, like just having a genuine joy for life and the work that you're doing plays such a role in your work ethic and like the push behind what you're doing. Like having joy, people are naturally attracted to joy and enthusiasm and just like a energy for life. And so the more you can promote like doing what you love, and complementing your deepest joy with God's deepest need to love people and to serve people, but also like do what you dig. I think that is something that begins to run through my mind as I continue to do this. Like life is so incredibly short, right? It's this little blip of life we have on this little planet. And it's like, it's so imperative that you pursue what brings you deep joy. Yeah. Like why pursue anything besides that, and pair that and complement that with loving people and serving people. And in my opinion, that's a life well lived. But so enthusiasm, key to success, number one, in my opinion, having enthusiasm and being willing to work harder than everyone else around you. Yeah. They say when you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life.
Sure.
I would argue that when you do what you love, you end up working like 3 times harder than everyone else. And like you set no boundaries. You set no boundaries with like when you stop working and it's like Sunday at 3 a.m. and you're like editing this video for this thing, it's like, it's hard to like know where to limit yourself and that's the thing too. Like when you genuinely do what you love, like you have to make sure you promote mental health with things too, to the point where, it could sometimes just take you so far into it that you like lose sight of like other priorities and like the relationships you have in your life and like resting and like there's so many other factors, but making sure you do what you love, but making sure that you also set aside time to balance life and other responsibilities and priorities. But having enthusiasm, number one, and a very strong work ethic, like just having passion behind what you do. And then just a hidden bonus little point is just knowing people. Get to know people, be genuine with meeting new people, and maybe to some extent like being a yes man a little bit too, like saying yes to opportunities and like kind of seeing where it goes. Like you take on a gig and maybe there's not a ton of money that comes from it, but you do it for X amount, but you do it to like the absolute best of your ability. Like say you do a project for $100, right? but you shoot it and edit it like you got paid $1,000 for it, right? And now when you show this to the next client, they're going to see you did it and it looks like $1,000 gig.
Yes.
And then you kind of leverage that as, just doing your best work will play such a role with landing, other clients and other opportunities that could lead to more money to pay your bills and to provide for your future creatively, So
Good
yeah,
stuff.
Enthusiasm, getting to know people, work harder than everyone else in your life, and you'll start to see some cool things.
Yeah, if you go in with that like glass half full mentality, and you really like, if my perspective on that whole thing too is just that you really, if you really really love something to the point of like, especially in the arts based content that you create. If you really love something, you never want to stop working toward that goal. So like you mentioned, like taking one chance that might, connect you to somebody, or you meet a couple people and then that branches off to others.
Totally.
Even if it just lands at one, you can never look at that as like something that pulls your head out of the headspace of I'm growing, because that really like pushes you to say, oh, I got one and it didn't go anywhere, but like I still got one. And then now I can go find another, and then another and another. And most of those are one-stop shops where it's like, I go and we both like, figure out whatever we create whatever we need to create, and then out of there, because most of the time it doesn't continue. But then if you find that one that maybe keeps you going, then it gives you like energy to strive further, right? Like that whole thing is fantastic.
Dude, absolutely.
Like
I agree.
The whole freelancing thing is fascinating. I think it's really interesting to people who watch this in particular, because there's a lot of questions about that next step in life. Like, you mentioned graduating school. Like I just graduated college, and I think if it wasn't for the fact that like friends of mine and me like kind of strived after certain things that we wanted, and I think if people don't really do that, maybe that puts them in an awkward spot coming out of school, right? I mean, it feels like you're not really ready,
right?
Right.
Huh.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
The whole thing, like just graduating school and all of that stuff is a big like misnomer. You really like have no idea what's next. You have no idea what you got to do to like make yourself relevant or find the job. And now all the pressure's there and your creative sense is gone, because it's just like you're so focused on all that. So what are some tips that you have as far as like if you were to say to a new graduate who's saying, I have no idea what I'm going to do, like, where am I going to go? Like, who am I going to turn to? What do you say to somebody who wants to pursue the arts and after school?
Love it. That's phenomenal for sure. I think understanding the fact that you are not alone in searching for what the heck you're doing with your life. You know what I mean? I think people can do a great job of disguising, and social media is the vehicle in which we are able to showcase a better version of ourselves to the point where you're in this constant cycle of comparing yourself to the people around you, where their lives are incredibly filtered and photoshopped or corrected to give this impression that their life is just like full of daisies and just like a piece of cake and there's no flaws, or they're so involved in community they've never felt loneliness or pain or heartbreak. And like, people want to show the best version of themselves, and I think it stems from a desire to be accepted and be loved and be valued. And so jumping back to your initial question, know that you're so not alone in trying to figure out next steps. And yes, photography and videography and graphic design, the arts in general is an incredibly saturated market. Like everyone wants to creatively do something that will go viral, you know. There's all these YouTube videos on like how to make things go viral and be the next,
your next steps.
Exactly. Yeah. All these tutorials saying like how to have a successful YouTube channel. Like the list is endless, because people I think want that. I think they want that recognition. They desire that. But just know that, one, you're not alone in trying to figure out next steps. So have peace in knowing that deep down, whether or not people are willing to admit it, I think we're all trying to figure out what the heck we're doing next. Yeah. So that's something I would tell someone just jumping out of school and now figuring out like what they'd want to do creatively, possibly full time. Know that you're not alone. Secondly, if you went to college or a university, community is served to you on a silver platter.
Oh yeah.
Every single day.
Yep.
It's served to you on a platter with your roommates, with the people in your classes that you have like community connections with, the people you see at the caf or wherever you eat food on campus. If you're like in a dorm, like community, like every door is open, walking through the halls, just kicking it with, it's just like, it's almost like you're on a high with community within that context. So the moment you graduate and like you pop that bubble and now you're in the real world, essentially, community just looks vastly different. And so sooner than later, for someone that's just graduated from school, really, really determine where your sense of community lies. That being in a church, like a local church, and get to know people your age that have also graduated that are trying to figure out things. Maybe it's through like other events or people throwing parties that you're friends with at school, so you can like continue to cultivate community that you maybe had while in school. Whatever community looks like to you, just make sure you dive into that, because if you really do want to go into the arts upon graduation, know that like I said previously, it's easy to maybe feel alone or like you're the only person trying to, but you're not alone. We're all trying to figure this thing out. And then secondly, community is so vital, because it's easy to become lonely, or it's easy to feel like you're all by yourself trying to figure out this freelance lifestyle. Like folks that are working in a 9-to-5 job have the luxury of coworkers to see every day and be like, Bill and Nancy, whatever.
Sure.
They're all 90 years old, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if Bill and Nancy.
Yeah, those aren't common names anymore.
Yeah, not so much.
No,
whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, we can edit this, I think.
Yeah.
But like you're with coworkers and you have that community and you get to like see them, even though you may be like slaving away at a 9-to-5 you're not stoked on. At least you get to see familiar faces and cultivate friendships. Yeah. Freelancing in the first like 6 months to a year, I would be sitting like editing, in a dark room at a desk, and then just like turn around, there's no one next to me, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, where is everyone?
It's isolating.
Like, it can very well be isolating. So just being cautious of not spending too much time in isolation, and
building your network.
Building a network, absolutely. So building community, that's super important. And you have to be teachable, and you have to be willing to push it and like watch tutorials on how to do this certain thing with this camera. You know what I mean? And like, that's let me see how to phrase this. Let me see. So like with me, like my major was Christian studies, minor in global studies. I don't have a film major, or I don't have a graphic design minor, these things that would have been very beneficial, especially with the career path I dove into. But what I've been able to do is seriously like watch YouTube videos on every way that I need to, everything I need to know about the camera is on YouTube. Sure. Right? So like people have made countless tutorials on how to do these things and learn shutter speed and aperture, So watching YouTube videos, trial and error, you go out and take 1,000 photos and you come back, you edit them all down, and you only like 2 of them, right? But you now understand like, okay, I'm going to try this next time, or I'm going to do this a little differently. So trial and error, watching YouTube videos and surrounding yourself with people that know the camera better than you is genuinely how, that's how I learned to use the camera, and now I'm doing it full time and it's working. It's
amazing.
But you got to have that drive and you got to push it. So to bring it all together, to like make it practical for someone listening, know that you're not alone. Like we're all trying to figure this out. Community is so important. It's easy to become isolated. So really surround yourself with like-minded people. You got to have a work ethic, and you got to push it. You got to give your all with it, really. And don't be afraid to fail with it. Like you go out and take 1,000 photos, you only like 2 of them. Maybe you see that as a failure, but I see that as like, you're now a little bit better next time, because you're actually trying, you're putting in the effort, and you're going for it. And so you got to go for it. You got to just do it. Stuff. So
really good stuff.
Hopefully that's helpful. I'm all over the place with, my brain is literally.
I love it. You're a motivational speaker.
Dude, I love it.
You got a lot of good stuff. No, that's really key. It's awesome to visualize it. Like I think something that really gets all of us kind of creatives trapped is when we end up overwhelming ourselves, you know, whatever. If you're type A, it doesn't really matter. I think any creative can get to a point where they feel just overwhelmed by the mass amount of information that they have to consume to be able to just pursue the career.
Right.
Like I think that in a sense, like business as a major in college or whatever is a little bit more centered around formula, whereas the arts are really arbitrary. Like the whole, as you were speaking, that whole spiel there, I really like kept thinking about how the arts are so arbitrary. Nobody can really tell you, and you can't really get an education besides like basic principles like composition and framing and like all the, you know, the exposure triangle and like different things about the camera, or, you know, the arts as in painting or the, you know, acting or whatever it is. But if you think about all of that, I mean, everything in life, this is getting real deep, but like every career path in life was all developed by someone somehow. They just found a formula that worked.
Wow.
And then they put it all together. But like, that's the thing, I think, to demystify all of the categories and like the different congregations of people that like all put this all together. Like, I was just thinking, like, if somebody was thinking that, like, how do you break down the stigma that a certain thing has to be the way that it is? The arts are so different, like in that category especially. That's why it's so arbitrary, because, you know, it's like a dog watching, like looking out into the backyard and sees a squirrel.
Right.
Like the majority of people are like following a trend.
Yeah.
And then the second that trend changes and somebody does something cool, everybody's on that boat.
That's so true.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That's
and I
so
think
strange.
Yeah, that's so strange. And I think, tagging along with what you just said, people, I think, desire to keep up with the next big thing or the next trend or the next thing that everyone else has their attention on.
Yeah.
Because I think they desire to keep up. And like I said previously, it stems from a desire to be accepted and feel like they're in the know with things. So when someone's like, oh, did you hear that? And they're like, oh, of course. Yeah, you know, I think it's just, like wanting to keep up with the trends, and it's ever changing, and it's difficult to keep up with.
Yeah. It's almost in a way worthless in a sense. Like, you know, like and we can get into, like, we're about to go to a break, but like we can get into this more, but like, the whole cookie cutter mentality is almost as if, not that that society itself is like dumbed down now because of social media. It is to a degree. Right. But, you know, people chase their idols in a sense that like everybody tries to like shape themselves after like Peter McKinnon or like Sam Elkins or like guys
Casey Neistat,
the dudes that like did it all, because it's like, it's a sense of security. Like you kind of said that like that has something to do with it, that we have to find a sense of like security to push forward. Totally. Super interesting.
Yeah. And I think that if you really want to do something of impact and legacy, in my opinion, I think it begins in shutting out what everyone else is doing. Because if you continue to watch the people that are making it or doing the next big thing, you're naturally going to want to adapt to that creative approach, and you're going to just take bits and pieces from
stealing little things.
And that's going to shape it's going to shape and change you into like almost their identity when you have something so specific that you bring to the table that is so valuable and so full of worth. It's almost tempting to see like what would come from a creative person if they completely shut out all inspiration or what everyone else is doing and create in such a way where it's so specific to who they are and who they're created to be, and see like what effect. And maybe it's not even initially to showcase to the world, but just for themselves to be able to see like, this is specifically coming from my heart, soul, flesh and bones, like my deep longing for creativity, and it's not tainted and or affected by anyone else. Like, this is what I bring to the table. And then if you choose to make that public, so be it. But just the initial act in creating it for yourself, because I personally believe that like there's a creator of the universe and he's given us the ability to create. And if you simply create just for the purpose in absolutely enjoying it and maybe not even making public, there's so much beauty and so much worth that comes in that, you know?
Wow. Man, that was great. Holy cow, that took like a really dramatic,
It
good
did.
turn.
And I'm just like a small tear. And I think the one thing that I don't know.
Bawling.
And it's interesting. And I personally, like, I'm saying this, and I don't know if I've actually personally done that, where like I've shut out all other inspiration just as like a test to kind of see like what would happen if I like created something just for myself and didn't show it to anyone, but just for this.
We grow up in the whole social media age has totally wrecked that.
Oh, I know. We have to make everything public.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating seeing what could come as a result of just creating something just for yourself and just reflecting and enjoying what that, what could come from that. So.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Let's take it to a break and we'll keep going on that tangent.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome back. We were in the vein of talking about like, just growing up in the social media age. In a sense, I mean, we were like teens kind of when that whole Instagram thing came out and suddenly everybody's lives are social and they're public and like everybody knows about what everybody's up to because of what they post. And like as a creative, you mentioned that you weren't sure if you've actually found 100% what your creative voice is. And I would argue that from two ways. One, I guess that I think it takes a long, long time. That's pretty obvious to like actually figure out what you're good at, especially when you're growing up and your brain's a mush and you're, you're learning all that stuff. But two, it's a very real thing, and it's something that we can't ignore, that social media and the people that we look up to and idolize, or the people that we really see as assets in the world, we end up shaping ourselves after them, like a photographer in this sense, a photographer, motivational speaker,
right,
that kind of a thing, because I think we think there's value there, and like I wish that I could be that. I want to be on top of that, but then again, it's like, how much are we willing to sacrifice who we really are creatively to be in that vein? So I want to hear what you think about that.
Wow, so
that's really deep.
Yeah. So help me out and just like say it one more time, like in a nutshell.
Nutshell.
Like,
okay. So
question?
nutshell. Sorry.
You're
nutshell
good.
Is basically just. How do you find your creative, unique voice in a world that's so saturated by social media?
I would say take some time to remove yourself from the hundreds and hundreds of voices that you're listening to and hearing on literally a constant basis. Like social media is kind of a rat race of like constantly attempting to see how we can entertain one another and keep one another engaged, and watch this video clip or look at these epic travel photos of this vibey couple that are in this epic Thailand. I don't know. Like there
are many vibey couples. Let's
there
be real.
is.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Everyone's using the same presets, and I don't know. We can talk about that later. But how to find your voice amidst a culture of literally everyone
copycats
sharing their voice, on volume 10, right? I would begin by removing yourself from listening to all the voices of culture and social media and influencers and maybe the people that you really value on social media. Maybe taking a pause from it and removing yourself from it, and take some time to really sit in silence. I think silence is a bit non-existent in our culture. We love noise, and we love filling our time and our there's just always, if we're not looking at social media, music's playing, or if we're not listening to music, we're watching a movie. And if we're not watching a movie, we're watching a tutorial on how to, use this ND filter for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, watching.
Yeah, we're constantly watching or listening or always doing something. And I think it's so powerful and beneficial to stop and be silent. And I'm not saying like you need to become this meditation guru and like, just focus on your breath for 10 hours a day. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but if you're going to want to see who you really are and evaluate what your creative voice is, you have to quiet your surroundings long enough to hear who you are and like what you bring to the table. And maybe for some people, it's putting down paper on a desk and writing down what your deepest joys are. Like, what gives you goosebumps? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, what are those things that you're absolutely stoked on? and lean into those things. And now, maybe you can learn from what other people have done that also share those interests. And maybe at that point you can see like, okay, I love this person that's in this field, but I don't resonate with a few of these things. So I want to like make sure that I'm showcasing what I love and what I can bring to the table.
Yeah.
But I am inspired. Like it's
hard because you're inspired.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be like overwhelmingly, like I was thinking about that earlier when you were talking about it, because it's like you don't want to be 100% like an exact copy of that person.
Exactly.
Like you have to breathe your voice into it, but like I see what you mean.
Yeah. And I do want to reflect too on maybe a statement I said previously. Like it's beneficial to be inspired by the people around you, and I'm not implying that you need to like completely shut out everyone that inspires you so you can find your creative voice. I think sometimes it is beneficial for you to see like what other people are doing, but not feel the need to like completely like copy them or like word for word or picture for picture, whatever it may be. Make sure that you're inspired by people, but you're not neglecting or putting aside what you genuinely and creatively can bring to the table. And it's terrifying. Usually the thing that you want to bring to the table that you like personally believe is your true sense of creativity is terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a very good chance that people have yet to do that. It's almost like you have this like awesome idea, this awesome dream or this picture or video or creative idea, and you're about to present it to the world. And then you're like, wait, let me see how the world's going to perceive it. So then you start to shape it and mold it into something.
That's a great illustration.
You know what I mean? Like you shape it and mold it into something that's more presentable to the world. So the world's like, oh, nice. Oh, that's cool. That looks like everyone else's video that with the swipe transitions and that, you know what I mean? Like
the Matt Como.
Oh my gosh. The Matt Como. God bless him. He's great.
Yeah, he's great.
I love his stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that was his thing.
Yeah.
You're right, because that was his thing.
Totally.
Right, but then everybody then does it now.
But now everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can shoot on a flip phone, but if I add these transitions, that's going to really share a great story.
Yeah.
It's just, it's funny. But with that being said, so what I was saying previously, like you have something so beautiful that you want to bring to the world that is like your true sense of creativity, but prior to showing it, you make tweaks so that it blends in well with how culture will respond to it and how social media will receive it. And then you just kind of continue to fall into this pattern of what everyone else is doing, neglecting your true sense of creativity and like bringing something new to the table. Like the reason Peter McKinnon is Peter McKinnon, because I think he has kind of brought forth his personality into it, and people are so attracted to it. He became like the fastest growing YouTube channel in 9 months, something along those lines. And now all these people are like, I don't know, like doing like his stuff or like trying to like copy what he's doing.
Yeah.
The reality is we don't need another Peter McKinnon, we need another Evan or another Nick, like we need someone that is not afraid to share exactly who they are, even though they're diving into the fear of the unknown with their love for creativity. But that's what all the greats did. They like went for it and they showcased their personality, and you got to make sure you do the same.
Totally. Dude, that's great. That's awesome. That's so true though. Like, I mean, you think about how many people do try to copy each other and they make a YouTube channel just exactly after. And the thing that's tough to delineate is like there's certain mediums in film or there's certain mediums in photography that are in themselves like just what they are, and everybody can do it. Like, I mean, a podcast, there's nothing new about that. There's really nothing new about doing portraiture or doing landscapes. Like those are set norms for a certain thing.
Sure.
And there could be, millions of people doing that, but it's the way that you do it. It's the way that Peter directs people through his tutorials. It's the way that he shoots things. It's all of that that's different. Like you were saying, finding your voice within a medium that is already existing is hard.
Yeah,
it really hard. Mm-hmm. It's so difficult because it's easy to get kind of beat down about it too, because like you said, like you create an idea, you have something you want to showcase, and there's only so few that actually showcase it.
Right.
Versus like what you said, they mold it into something else.
Yeah.
And it's really sad that people like coddle their ideas and think that it's not like the right expression or like, and it shouldn't be a matter of right and wrong. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the fear of rejection, I think, too. It's putting something that is so valuable to you out there, and if people don't respond well to it, you're so deeply affected by it. And I think that's the reason why people want to shape and mold it into something that's presentable. Yeah, people are just so eager to feel loved and valued and appreciated. They may neglect their creativity to blend in with what everyone else is doing. There was a really cool analogy by the CEO or the CEO of Patreon, Jack Conte.
This should be interesting.
Yeah,
I want to hear this.
Do you know Jack Conte?
I have never heard of that guy.
Okay,
no, but cool.
Patreon is this. Yeah,
I know what Patreon is.
Totally.
Yeah,
okay.
Super rad. But yeah, the whole platform where you can pay artists.
Yeah. Exactly. And so cool. I believe he was in a podcast and he shared. There was a story about this ceramics teacher.
Okay.
So this isn't my story at all. This is all from Jack Conte. He was in a podcast, but he was saying there's a ceramics teacher, right? He splits the class into two sides, right? 50% here, 50 there. He looks at one side of the classroom and he's like, okay, for the entire semester, all I would like for you to do is make the perfect bowl, like shape with the clay, like one bowl is all I'm asking for the entire semester. That's all you got to do. Make the perfect bowl. So they're looking at each other just like, it's one bowl. Like we got this, right? Piece of cake. He looks to the other side of the classroom, this 50%. He's like, all right, you guys over here, I need you to make 1,000 bowls in this semester. And they're ripping their hair out. They're crying. It's just like a mess, right? They're like 1,000 bowl, right? So then day 2 rolls around. This side of the room, like I picture like classical music's playing and they're just like trying to shape the perfect bowl. And then like screamo metal on this side. And they're just like trying to make these 1,000 bowls, like making a bowl in like 20 seconds, shipping it out. It's drying, whatever. So it's just like mayhem. Like one side of the room, mayhem. The other side, like classical music's playing. They're all calm, you know? So then as the semester progresses, right, you get closer to the end, the teacher now like gets to judge or grade, you know, one side of the room and the other. So he goes to this side. He sees that they've made these perfect bowls, but really like he's looking at it, he's like, no, not even close. Let me see. It looks good, but no, you know? So it's like they spent so much time in it. Like here they are presenting like this beautiful thing, right? But he's like, no, there's so many, here's a few things that you can improve on, you know? But then he goes over to this side of the room and they're all sweaty. They're all exhausted, just like, right?
Yeah.
And he goes over and it's like, you can imagine like who ended up making a more perfect bowl, right? The side of the room that just tirelessly worked through 1,000 bowls that semester. Maybe around bowl 634, they were like, wow, that was actually a pretty perfect bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, repetition.
Yeah, that repetition and like learning through it and like that muscle memory and like not being afraid to fail and like actually going for it, as opposed to the side of the room that put all their time, effort, and energy into this one thing they present to the world and it's like, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
It's just a fascinating perspective. And so the reason why he even went on with that analogy was along the lines of, you know, he was talking about how he makes like 6 to 7 or even 8 music videos a month and like dishes them out there. And he's just like throwing out content. And one last thing that he said that was so impactful, like when you spend so much time and effort and energy into like molding and shaping this one piece of content and hiding it from everyone, it almost becomes selfish. This piece of content that you're spending so much time on and refraining from sharing with everyone because there's these little things and details that literally no one's going to notice but you, right? And then you finally present it and it's like you could have done so many other things that could be of value that people could be affected by. So it's just
so true.
All in all, it's just fascinating, like not being fearful in making stuff and putting it out there. It's kind of like the law of large numbers, like make 100 videos and maybe they're not all like Hollywood incredible, you know, but you make 100 and you throw it out there. Maybe like 3 or 4 of them like get a crazy following or views from it, and you know, but just go for it. We're so timid. We're so timid and fearful and like how people will perceive us. But if you're able to tackle through that fear of what others may think of you, and you are just creating for the true joy of creating and just going for it and pull a Nike and just do it, right? So many cool things I think will come as a result. And so I just thought that was interesting, like not being fearful in making stuff and putting it out there and just continuing to do it, and like maybe not even look at how people initially respond to it, but you're creating because you feel like that's what you were born to do.
Dude, that's right on the money. I think that's really cool. And in a sense, that analogy works. I was just going to say, I wondered if that bull analogy had to do with like quantity versus quality.
Sure.
In that, like, you know, it's assumed that, you know, if you put out 100 videos that are like, okay, decent, and then one that's like a masterpiece, which is better? Because I think there's a big debate about
that. Yeah, totally.
Which one is better? Because, you know, you put a lot more blood, sweat, and tears into one, and then the others are more like a repetition practice process.
Yeah.
You know, it's like failing hard versus like not failing too hard, because like I've done a ton of them. So like I see where I need to, that's super interesting. And I think, I believe it was RJ Mitty who was on here from Breaking Bad, was saying that he believes that, that all of your smaller videos or films, like if you're an actor, all of your smaller videos, the more that you appear in films or the more that you know, create,
right,
it's all resume builder. Like it is so key to build your reel, to build your, you know, your entire catalog of what you've done, because if you can show that as one piece and say, look, and then, you know, you present somebody with an entire list. Like, I mean, I even have personal experience recently. Like that for me was, I started out making GoPro videos, and I made about 120 in a couple of years, because I was just like, I loved it. I wanted to do it, right? Like you would probably say the same thing, take 1 million pictures or whatever.
Yep.
Then I started making a little better films that took me a little more time. And then I started this, and I was doing this. And then I was working at a broadcast network doing all of that stuff, doing all of it. And for me, I always felt like, okay, is it worth it? Like, really? Like, why am I doing all of this? Right. Why am I doing every single thing, like the weekly content? Like, is it really going to add up to something? Because, you know, not all of us can pull a Tarantino and make a movie every 7 years or whatever, and it's a masterpiece. Right? But it is so interesting that, like, you know, if you have a big list and a big resume of like material that you can present to somebody, you have a website and you have all that stuff, it's so key, right? Like it seems like it makes sense.
Absolutely. And quickly backtracking to, with the approach of making, you know, 100 videos or one video, the beautiful thing about creativity is I may be just absolutely wrong with my perspective on it, and that's totally okay. And like, take it with a grain of salt. Like, okay, maybe your approach may not be 100 videos, but one, like, do that. Like that's okay. Like we can all express creativity differently. But it's just this sense of like trying and going for it, and like putting actions to your words, and like really like going for it. So I don't know. I was just thinking about that as we were chatting. Like, there's so much freedom within the world of creativity. There's no real formula, but just make sure you're actually doing stuff, because it's so much easier to talk about doing things. The real challenge is going for it. So now to answer your question that you were saying, having those aspects of portfolio and social media presence, and adding to, you know, your reel and these things, like adding opportunities that will benefit showcasing what you're capable of is so important, you know?
Being more well-rounded. I think I heard an interview the other day where a guy said, this is the age in the arts of being well-rounded. If you do a little bit of everything, then you're so much more prepared for everything, because the industry is changing so much.
Absolutely.
People need to know how to do a lot more, instead of just like a key grip, knowing how to key grip on set. They need to know how to do all of the jobs on set.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Absolutely. I would argue that it's more beneficial to be good at 10 things rather than being great at one thing.
Yeah.
That, and now even as I say that, I mean, I don't know, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because there's like experts that should be experts because they shred at it and they're great at that one thing. But I think within the creative field, being good at 10 things rather than great at one makes you more valuable to people too.
Yeah.
And the fact that you know how to film and edit and slap on a lapel to conduct an interview and be a DP and know how to produce something and know how to put text on a screen, so you have this graphic design kind of flavor in there. Being able to almost be a one-man show with it will not only open more doors for new opportunities for people to be like, hey, I saw you could do that. Can you help me with it?
Yeah.
Like, new doors and new opportunities will arise from it.
Yeah.
And it makes you more well-rounded. And sometimes you'll take on jobs where you're like, I don't know how I feel about this, but you do it and you're like, like I went for it. I wasn't too stoked on it, but I think sometimes you have to do things creatively in fields that maybe you're not too interested in to better dial in what you're actually interested in. So maybe you're like watching or listening and you don't really know like what you want to do creatively. You're like, I love creativity, but should I take photos of families and dogs or weddings or portraits or landscapes or, what do I really want to do? Like, who am I? What is my voice, my brand? And there's so much pressure to feel like you have to have everything established. And don't get me wrong, like I fall into that trap also of feeling like I have to have this polished presence. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to learn it. But sometimes you have to creatively try and do new things to see that you really don't like them, so that you're like, okay, I've done these 5 things, totally hate it. But I did this 6th thing and it's like, okay, I kind of dig this. I'm going to do a few more, and it all stems in battling through the fear of failure, battling through the fear of the unknown and going for it. I think we need more courageous, creative people to go for it and see what could come from it.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome. I think that, people go in with fears that it's too hard to do, but I think the insane thing is how like almost your passion / adrenaline will literally take you through so many growing pains that you had no idea that you could handle. Yeah. And it's also, it's like at the same time, it's so subconscious. Like even just with this as an example, this whole thing, I've been doing it all by myself for a year, but after a while, like once the formula kind of got involved and, all of it gets put together on all aspects, it's kind of like, it blows my mind that it's so simple now to me. When months ago it was like really difficult, like how, humans adapt and all that stuff. But something like kind of in this vein too, is I just thought of a quote. Now we're getting real deep.
Let's do it. Love it.
There's a Winston Churchill quote that my mom actually sent me recently when I was just kind of feeling like, like a failure or whatever. We always get like that. But he says that success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Because there really is no like...
I love that.
There's really no way... I mean, nobody's perfect, so there's really no way to be at that level of like something that's so not perfect, but like so unattainable. It's like... It's really just being or excelling better than maybe the next person, because there's no way to not fail somehow. Yeah. But that teaches you integrity, right? Like it takes you to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's kind of deep.
Success. So moving from failure to failure
without losing enthusiasm.
Yeah. And there it is with enthusiasm, man. I dig that.
It's all about that.
Yeah. Having that level of consistency with joy and optimism and enthusiasm, diving into it, knowing full well that it may be just a catastrophe. However, that is not going to affect your joy or the positivity that comes in creativity, Yeah. And people may create from different emotions. I'm not saying you always have to be enthusiastic to create something. Like sometimes incredibly important and valuable pieces of creativity stems from pain and heartbreak and anxiety and stress, and like people can really resonate with that. So just knowing that, like, despite your emotions, continue to create, continue to see like how you can express your love for creativity in such a way that it's specific to who you are and what you're feeling. And but it's hard to ignore how the world may respond to something, because we all want to be loved, we all want to feel valued by people, but it's a challenge to break through that. However, continuing to create, I think, is just foundational for those that love creativity. Being able to create in the joyous moments and the painful moments will really shape someone and make them grow.
That's really great. Awesome. Well, we've already packed in like almost an hour, so crazy.
Really?
Yeah. So let's bring it toward a landing and kind of talk about your future plans. We didn't really touch on travel, but I know you just got back from Africa, right?
Yeah.
And you were traveling to Iceland recently and all that stuff.
Totally.
So what are kind of some of your future plans? Like, where do you see yourself going in the next, not like necessarily where do you see yourself traveling to, but where do you see yourself in like the next 5 years?
That is the $1 million question, man. That is so good. I don't even know what I'm going to eat for breakfast tomorrow morning, to be honest. Mm-hmm. However, I would love to see how I can continue to shape and mold my love for creativity into something that can move beyond jumping from one gig to the next, or shooting one wedding, or editing this thing here, kind of hopping from one project to another. I'm completely a 1099 independent contractor, jumping from one project to the next. And I've done it for a little over 2.5 years now, and it's been fun, and it's been a challenge, and it's been something I've really learned and grown in. However, I want to now see how I can use my love for creativity and attach it to legacy in some way, where I can create something that could potentially impact or bring joy or help other people create long after me being buried 6 feet under, you know? Yeah. Like, I'd love to see how I can begin to build, a team of creative people, or maybe there's younger guys that love the camera but like have no idea how to use it. Like, what if I'm able to teach them the camera and get them on board and show them how to get into this world, so that they can then do the same and bring other people into that also have that genuine love for creativity. So it's vague, but I think within the next 5 years, like, I'd love to see how I can implement my love for creativity and kind of pass it and share it to other people that love creativity, and if anything, build kind of a creative team of people and empower them to go out and create incredible things that help people or help brands promote their business, or in general, I think creativity can bridge the gap between a need and people that have resources. Like, this area needs fresh drinking water. Let's make a killer video to inspire people that have way too much money. And like, let's bring fresh drinking water. Like, creativity is so powerful. Media is so powerful. And so within the next 5 years, I'd love to see how I can pass my love and joy for creativity into the lives of other people, get them stoked on it, and see how we can begin to do big things through creativity.
That's awesome. That's great, Sam. I know it's hard to like actually say what that's going to be. I don't think anybody knows. I think it's kind of what you would like to be, and
we're all figuring it out. We're all trying to figure it out. Just going for it, and keep trying and keep doing new things, and it's a trip, man. It's an adventure, and I'm on board.
That's awesome. Well, throw out your tag. What's your Instagram? At Nick, what is it?
So it's my full name. It's at Nicholas Worrell. Cool. Worrell.
Go check out his content. Good stuff. Really good stuff.
I appreciate it, man.
Great stuff. I love it. Be sure to go check out everything he's got coming into his workflow and everything he's posting, and be sure to go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and those are just social media. So actually, YouTube and Spotify, go watch and listen, and be sure to follow along with us. We're growing every day. It's episode 43, which is awesome. That's really cool. We just really actually hit a year recently. And it's cool. I mean, really, if you put your mind to it and you keep, pushing to try to actually make your dreams happen and like actually work toward them, it's not as hard as you think. It really, like, it all comes full circle, So follow us on Instagram at 1-20 Show and check out everything we got coming. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks for being on.
Dude, love
good time.
Crushing it.
Great time.
So good being here, man.
Awesome. And we'll see you guys soon.